Okay, it's time to continue. Firstly, I would like to add and share that the videos are already having a reflection on an effect, which I'm really grateful for because some of my colleagues have seen the videos and actually gave me advice, which I will share with you now. The Which one? Yeah, let's go with the one that is most easiest and I think is an interesting point of view because I hadn't thought about it. Initially, this is regarding if it's better to rent or buy a place. So actually there were only two colleagues. I'm not sure how many of them have actually watched the video, but that doesn't matter. I just wanted to be honest with you on what the actual number is because I don't know, too often I've seen myself and other people over um, over overdo it with the expression. Like when I say a lot of people, usually that sounds more like 10 instead of 2. It's not practically true, so that's why I wanted to make that clear. And I made a mistake in the Bulgarian videos about how my salary was increased, so I said a wrong number, which is way above what it actually was. And that's why I would like to clarify things. This is again part of me attempting to be honest. One of the advice that I received regarding the apartments or the personal living quarters, let's say, because it doesn't necessarily need to be an apartment. Here, I'm living in the capital and I will probably remain here because it's the center of our country. So that's how I see it. And it's the biggest city, most people in it. I think there's more chances of something happening here rather than somewhere else. Now everything can of course change, that is a fact, but for now I'm thinking about Sofia, the city that I currently live in. And for the third time, the advice was to buy a place, but think about buying a big place, bigger and for a family. That's practically it. That's the short version of it. Think about buying a place which will fit your family and it won't be tight when you have a wife or when you, respectively a husband. And of course respectfully children. The advice that the colleague gave was that once you have a family, the apartment will suddenly become small, so think about a bigger investment rather than a little one so that it's shorter and it's easier. This is something that I was already thinking about because I'm really excited about finding a girlfriend and I do wonder on how and what I can provide. So this is something that I'm interested in looking into. I was looking into 3-room apartments and I'm not sure how it is in other countries because I've not looked in it, but here that means the main room and 2 bedrooms. So I don't remember what the word, or I don't know what the word is for the hall. Okay, Google Translate says it's a hall. Yeah, I get it. Living room. Yeah, I knew it, but I couldn't make the connection. So I was initially looking at 3-roomed apartments, which I found ones that I would be happy to afford. Let's put it like that, in case I do take out a loan. The other thing which I hadn't thought about was looking around the region that it's placed in. Now what was... Yeah, looking around the neighborhood. He said that it should be the best idea is, of course, normally, for it to be in a good position regarding public transport, resource-wise, which I mean stores, markets, etc. A mall might be great as well, I guess. Schools, kindergartens, something that is an apartment or a quarter, living quarter, where you have everything practically. He also gave an example of a neighborhood that he prefers, he likes and sees the best way. Funnily enough, he said that he wanted to leave that neighborhood, but once he started looking around, he saw that that's actually the best one, so he stayed there. But as far as I know, he's happy there. He also looks like a great person, so I'm really amazed by that. Him, I mean, a really positive mood, really interesting personality. That's the short of it. The second advice was about the credit cards, and I'm actually going to have to look for an article in English because I looked it up in Bulgarian, and initially the first couple of articles were practically useless. I almost understood or got an idea what it means. Initially I thought about it as a bad idea, but I got into an article which is a good one. The advice was to be, of course, disciplined. Now I'm going to start with the discipline because this is something that I'm missing currently in my repertoire of abilities, let's put it that way. You need it because the idea is to know how much you usually spend during the month, and if you spend that money through a credit card instead, I will explain that in a few moments, why we should do that, and then be able to pay the whole month's credits with the salary. It's a little ring around, but the advice was about cashback. So cashback is an option where mostly, as I understood it, I'm not sure if that's the case. I'm not. This is another thing that I should have looked up, but I was thinking about explaining the principle. I'll look up for articles. I'll put them below as a link. But the idea is that some credit card companies or banks, doesn't really matter what we're talking about, provide credit cards which have an option for cashback. Cashback is when you buy something and you in given period after a given period of time, if you have met the requirements, you will receive percentage of what you have spent. It's practically a little percentage. I'm not really happy about it. This is why I initially thought it was useless, but it can work in a beneficial way, because the colleague that told me about it said that those credit cards actually work in his favor, and I didn't know that was possible. Mostly what I've seen throughout social media, internet, friends not that much because we don't really talk in that regard, but mostly what I've seen or heard is that dealing with credit cards is scary, and it's practically scary if you're not disciplined. You really need to know what you can spend and when you can return in the time limit time limit of a month or so, where you or to be more precise, from when you spend it till the moment that you have to return the money. The advice here is that we should always be prepared and be able to return the money by the end of the I don't know what it's called, the downtime payment. Term, downtime payment term, if you get my meaning. Payment period, okay. I'm really checking them in Google Translate just to confirm what the most used words are, so let's, I don't know, the information that I'm talking about is more reachable. So the idea here is that if you have a credit card with a cashback option, you can actually, instead of using your salary, you can use the credit card, because part of the conditions are that you have to spend a specific amount, minimum amount of money with that card for that specific period. Now the periods that I saw here were 3 months, 6 months, and there was a year. So for 3 months it was let's say $1,500, and for 6 months it was $2,000. I'm giving examples. Doesn't really matter what it is exactly. You'll see it in your credit provider, I guess. Credit provider's terms. And so in order to do that, when that period ends, and if you have reached the minimum, you are entitled to a percentage of your expenses. So this means that the more you spend, the more money you get back. And the discipline is required here, because you can always pay with the credit card instead of your salary, but only pay enough that you can then return when the deadline comes. There it is, deadline for the payment comes, for the payment of the credit. And otherwise, if you don't pay the whole sum, the interest might kill out your percentage of the cashback. This is quite interesting, because imagine you get money back and practically you're lowering your costs instead of actually staying the same, I guess. Another thing, what was it? Oh yes, so one of the articles that I read was that some credit providers, I'm going to call them credit providers because as I understand that there are websites, there are credit companies, and there are banks, I guess, and I think something else, I'm not sure what it was. It was more things that I would usually assume there are. I usually thought that it was only banks, but it's not. So credit provider, hence this is where those words come in. So some credit providers have specific agreements with specific websites, stores, etc., and you have to actually buy from them to receive a percentage back. which, as I understood it, I'm not sure if that's the case, but if you buy something outside of the partners that the credit provider has, you won't get your money back. At least that's what I got understood from it. I'm not sure if it's correct. Again, best way for you to confirm is check with your credit provider. Look it up on the internet to see what information you can find there, and I guess test it out. I don't think you're going to need to test it out if you look for the information, because I do believe that you can find it properly, but still, just so it's there, just so you know. That's it. Continuing on with the next video, this will probably be a two-parter.